For 5 long years, Jack had lived alone on the edge of a frozen forest. No visitors, no calls, no noise, just the wind, the snow, and the silence of his cabin on the lonely planet of Elion. He liked it that way. He had left the war behind. Left people behind, pain was easier when there was no one to lose. But that night, something changed. The wind howled outside. The fire inside crackled. Jack was drinking hot broth when knock knock. Knock, knock. He froze. No one ever came here. No one even knew he still lived here. He grabbed his old pulse rifle from under the table, quietly walked toward the door. His boots creaked on the wooden floor. Another knock, this one louder, urgent, knock, knock. K-N-O-C-K. Who's there? He called. Voice rough from disuse. No answer. He peeked through the small window beside the door. At first, he saw nothing but snow. Then movement, a figure, slumped, shivering, holding something. He opened the door. Just. A little gun raised. A woman, tall and alien, stood before him. Her skin was a soft violet color. Her clothes torn and soaked. She held a child barely 5 years old, wrapped in a blanket. Please, the woman said in a weak voice. We need help. Jack hesitated. She was from the Zyari species, the same aliens humans had fought in the war, the same ones who had taken everything from him but the child. She was trembling, eyes wide with fear, and the woman looked ready to collapse. I don't take guests, Jack said coldly, trying to shut the door, but the woman put her hand against it, her arm. Shaking, we will die out here, she whispered. My daughter is sick. We've walked for days. Jack clenched his jaw. His mind screamed, send them away. But something inside him, something buried deep, stopped him. He sighed, opened the door wide, and stepped aside. Come in, he muttered. They stumbled in, and he shut the door behind them. The cold wind vanished, replaced by quiet heat and tension. The woman laid the child near the fire. Jack gave her a blanket and a cup of hot broth. He watched them carefully, rifle still in hand. What's your name? He asked finally. Alira, she said, not meeting his eyes. This is Looney. The child coughed softly, eyes dull with fever. Jack went to his supplies, took out an old med kit. He hadn't used it in years, not since. Can I help her? He asked. Alira nodded slowly. Yes. Please. Jack worked silently, giving Looney a shot to bring her fever down. Wrapped her in warm cloth, then looked at Alira. She had a burn on her arm, deep and infected. He cleaned it, then bandaged it tightly. You were in a fight, he said, not asking, just stating. Alira said nothing, but her eyes told 1,000 stories. War, running, hiding, and fear. That night, Jack didn't sleep. He sat by the fire, watching them both. His mind filled with old memories, his wife's face, his daughter's laugh. Both lost in the war, and now, here were 2 strangers, alien strangers, sleeping. In his cabin, something didn't feel right. Something was coming, but he didn't know yet. That this knock at the cabin would change his life forever. The cabin was quiet. But Jack didn't feel at peace. He sat in his old wooden chair, staring at the 2 aliens sleeping near the fire. The flames crackled softly, throwing shadows on the walls. Outside, the snow still fell, silent and heavy. He hadn't shared his home with anyone in years. And now 2 strangers were under his roof. One of them a child, the other a woman from the enemy species. The same species that had destroyed everything he once loved. Jack's hands tightened. Around the old mug of tea, his pulse rifle leaned against the table beside him. Always within reach, he didn't trust them, but something about the way the child clung to her mother. It softened him just a little. Morning came slowly, gray and cold. The little girl, Looney, opened her eyes first. She looked around, confused and afraid. then saw Jack sitting quietly. She quickly turned and buried her face into her mother's. Sighed, Jack looked away, unsure what to say. He wasn't used to talking anymore, and even less to children. Alira slowly sat up, holding her bandaged arm. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Thank you for letting us stay." Jack gave a short nod. The girl had a fever. "She still needs rest." He got up, poured some warm broth into 2 bowls, and placed them in front of them. They both stared at the food, unsure if it was safe. "You think?" "I poisoned it," Jack said dryly. Alira shook her head quickly. "No, we're not used to kindness anymore." They ate slowly, carefully. Jack sat back down, watching them both. He needed answers soon. "What were you running from?" he asked, his tone hard now. Alira hesitated, then looked him in the eyes. "I can't say much. Not yet," she said softly. "Just know that we're not criminals." "That's not good enough," Jack said, standing up. "You show up at my door in the middle of a storm, bleeding and half dead, and I let you in. I deserve the truth." Alira stood too. Though weak, she didn't step back. "There are people after us," she said. "Bad people, not law, not peacekeepers. They don't care if we live or die." Jack narrowed his eyes. "Why are they chasing you?" Alira lowered her gaze. "Because I left," she whispered. "Because I refused to go along with what they did." Jack didn't press further. Her voice carried pain, the kind he knew too well. The girl, Looney, made a soft sound. She hadn't spoken a word yet, only watched everything in silence. Her big purple eyes kept tracking Jack's every move. She didn't trust him, and Jack didn't blame her. Jack went outside, boots crunching in the snow. He checked the perimeter, eyes scanning for movement. No tracks, no drones, no sign of danger. But something inside told him they wouldn't be alone for long. He'd seen it before. People running from something always brought trouble with them. Back inside, Alira was washing the used bowls. She moved slowly, her bandaged arm stiff. Jack noticed the tattoo on her neck faded, but still visible. A mark of the Zyari combat force. "You were a soldier," he said flatly. Alira froze, then nodded. "Yes," she said, "but not anymore." "I left that behind." Jack said nothing. His mind was racing. He didn't want war in his home, not again. "You still didn't tell me what your mission was." Eason, voice cold again. Alira looked at him and replied, "Our mission was survival. That's it." That night, Jack didn't sleep again. He sat by the window, rifle in hand, watching the trees. The wind howled louder than before, and deep in the woods, something moved just for a second. He tightened his grip on the rifle, eyes sharp. Were they already being tracked? Behind him, Looney stirred in her sleep, whimpering quietly. Alira gently held her close, whispering soft words in her alien tongue. Jack watched them. Something strange growing in his chest. Pity, anger, maybe even responsibility. "No," he told himself, "they're not your problem. You're just helping them survive the storm." But in the back of his mind, he knew storms always pass, but some dangers, they follow you all the way home. The next morning came with a strange silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy kind that feels like a warning. Even the wind outside had stopped. Jack didn't like it. He stepped out, boots crunching in the frozen snow, checked the sensors he had placed around the cabin long ago. They were still working, still quiet, but that didn't mean they were safe. Not yet. Inside, the fire crackled gently. Looney sat close to it, her little hands stretched toward the warmth. She didn't speak, didn't smile. She just sat there, eyes wide, watching the door as if she expected someone to break it down. Alira was awake too, sitting at the table, her face pale. Jack poured a cup of tea and slid it to her without saying a word. She nodded in thanks, but he didn't smile back. You said people were after you. He said, breaking the silence. I want to know who. Alira looked down at her hands. The burn on her arm was healing, but the pain in her eyes wasn't. There was a ship, she began slowly. We escaped from it, weeks ago, Jack. Raised an eyebrow. Escaped. She nodded. Yes, it was a prison ship, not for criminals, but for traitors. Traitors, he asked, to your own kind. Alira looked up, her voice firm now. I refuse to follow orders that hurt. Civilians, including humans. They called me weak, disloyal, dangerous. She paused, looking at Looney. They tried to take her from me, to break me, so I ran. Jack didn't speak for a moment. He remembered his own past, how Command had once ordered him to burn an alien village just because. Someone might be hiding there. He hadn't obeyed either. That disobedience had cost him everything. Where's the ship now? He asked, keeping his tone neutral. Somewhere in this region. She said, I thought we lost them, but I'm not sure anymore. Jack stood and walked to the window. Snow was falling again, but softly this time, still no tracks, no drones. No movement in the trees, but his gut said danger was getting closer. Behind him, he heard something soft, broken, almost like a whisper. He turned quickly and saw Looney. Her small lips moving for the first time. Mommy. Bad men. Outside. Alira froze, her eyes wide. Jack was already at the door, grabbing his rifle. He didn't open it, just watched through the narrow window slit. Nothing, just white snow and tall trees. But he had learned long ago. Children see things before adults do. Stay inside, he ordered, his voice sharp. He went around the cabin, checking corners, his breath fogging in the cold. Still nothing. But the hair on the back of his neck stood up. Back inside, he looked at Looney. Again, her hands were shaking, her eyes staring at the fire now. She had spoken. Only a few words. But it was a start. She doesn't talk much, Alira said quietly. Hasn't since we escaped. Why? Keish gasped, watching the child carefully. She saw things no child should see. Alira said, her voice breaking. She was almost taken from me, put in one of those camps. I fought back. I killed someone. And I ran with her in my arms. Jack felt a chill deeper than the snow could bring. This wasn't just about survival. This was about a mother, fighting a war to protect her child. And now, they were in his cabin, on his land, bringing their war to his doorstep. He didn't want this. He wanted silence, peace, to forget the world outside. But now, he couldn't look away. That night, he made his decision. He went into the basement, a place he hadn't touched in years. Under a dusty tarp lay a case, sealed tight with old security codes. He opened it slowly. Inside was his armor, scratched, worn, but still strong, and his old weapon, a pulse rifle with custom mods. He ran his fingers over it. The memories came back. Not all good, but all necessary. When he came back upstairs, Alira looked at him in surprise. You were a soldier too, she said softly. I still am, Jack replied. For now and in. That moment, an unspoken truth passed between them. They were no longer strangers. They were two broken warriors, protecting the only thing that mattered now. A silent girl with big eyes and a warning in her voice. It started with a whisper. Not a voice, but the sound of something brushing through trees. Too smooth to be the wind, too soft to be snow. Jack stood outside the cabin, his breath fogging in the cold air. The forest was still, but his instincts screamed otherwise. Something, or someone, was out there. He scanned the tree line with narrowed eyes. No movement, no heat signals, no tracks. But the feeling wouldn't go away. That old feeling, like when an ambush was near and death was hiding just out of sight. He turned back to the cabin, snow crunching under his boots. Inside, Looney was drawing on a piece of scrap paper Jack had given her. Her little fingers moved slowly, carefully. Alira sat nearby, eyes always watching the door, her injured arm held close. She's been drawing the same picture again and again, Alira said softly as Jack entered. Jack looked at the paper. It showed 3 stick-like shapes standing among trees, all black, with no faces next to them, a smaller shape with bright red eyes. Jack frowned. What is that supposed to be? Alira shook her head. I don't know. She won't say. Looney looked up, her eyes meeting Jack's for a second. Then she slid the paper closer to him and tapped one of the black figures. Her voice was barely a whisper outside. Jack's blood turned cold. He grabbed his rifle and went back to the window. Still nothing, but now the quiet felt heavier, unnatural, too quiet for a forest, even in winter. He activated the perimeter alarm and old system with motion sensors. Hidden beneath the snow, a low hum filled the room as the scanners warmed up. Then, beep, beep, beep. One of the markers on the screen blinked red, then another, then another. They're moving around us, Jack muttered. They're not rushing in. They're circling. Alira stood slowly, her face pale. They found us. Jack nodded, already pulling on his gear. Stay inside, keep Looney away from the windows, he said sharply. He opened a floor hatch and pulled up a crate of EMP grenades and trip mines. Where did you get all this? Alira asked, surprised. Jack didn't look up. After the war, I planned to never use any of this again, but I never threw it away either. He moved fast. Setting traps around the outer snowfield, he placed silent alarms and buried tripwires. Near the trees, every movement in the snow was now being watched. And every path toward the cabin was now dangerous for them, not him. Inside, Looney drew another picture. This time with red eyes staring through a window. She pointed at it, then at the back wall of the cabin. Jack rushed to the rear window. Nothing, but a small dot on the scanner flickered again. Only for a second, but it was inside the perimeter. He turned to Alira. They're testing our defenses. Seeing how close they can get without triggering alarms, she nodded grimly. They're trained hunters. They don't attack. Without planning, the cabin lights flickered, just for a second, but long enough to feel wrong. Jack checked the power source, still running, no damage. Then why the flicker? Suddenly clang. A loud metallic sound echoed from the roof. Then another clang-clang. Jack aimed his rifle up, ready to fire. Alira pulled Looney into the corner, wrapping her with her body. He climbed the attic ladder, rifle in hand, pushed. Open the hatch, nothing, just a patch of disturbed snow sliding off the metal roof. No footprints, no scorch marks, no signs of life. He closed the hatch, breathing hard. Could be drones. But, he whispered. Cloaked ones, can you stop them? Alira asked from below, her voice calm but tense. Jack nodded slowly. If they come close, yes. But if they're scanning from afar, they've already seen too much. That night, no one slept. Jack stayed near the window with his rifle. Alira sat beside Looney, holding her hand. The fire dimmed. But no one moved to feed it. They didn't want the light to attract more eyes. Then, sometime near dawn, Looney walked silently to the window. She pressed her tiny hand on the cold glass. 3 of them, she whispered, waiting. Jack rushed over, scanned the trees again. Still no signs, but her voice carried no doubt. She saw them, somehow. Before any tech could, he looked at Alira. She's not just watching, he said. She's sensing them. Alira looked at her daughter, both proud and afraid. She's special, she whispered, like her father was. And Jack realized this little girl, quiet and strange, might be their only warning before the storm hits. The storm hit at midnight, not with snow, but with fire. Jack had just checked the scanners again, no movement. He was about to tell Alira to get some rest when the ground shook beneath the cabin. Boom. The front wall rattled. The fire almost died from the blast wind. Looney screamed, and Alira pulled her close. Jack rushed to the door and opened the top hatch to peek out. Flashes of red light danced in the sky. Energy blasts. The trees were burning. Snow turning into steam. "They're here," Jack said flatly. Grabbing his armor and rifle, Alira already had her sidearm in hand. Her face had changed calm. Focused, ready, Jack turned to her. "You ready to kill again?" She nodded without emotion. "If they touch my daughter, I'll burn the forest down." They had no time to talk. A second blast shook the east wall crack. One of the trip mines had exploded. Someone had tried to come from the side. "Looney, stay under the floor," Jack ordered, lifting the hatch beneath the rug. The girl didn't argue. She climbed down silently. Her eyes wide, her hands gripping her little stuffed toy. Jack and Alira took positions. He watched the front. She covered the back, outside. Dark shapes moved through the trees, fast and careful. Too fast for normal soldiers. "They sent elites," Jack muttered. "They really want you." Alira didn't answer. She fired suddenly. Zap. A scream echoed from the back of the house. One down, more to go. Then came the real attack. A flash grenade landed just outside the front door. Jack turned away just in time. Flash. The light lit the room like a star. They stormed in. 3 figures in black armor. No faces, just red visors glowing in the dark. But Jack was faster. He dropped the first with a shot to the neck. Alira took the second with a shot to the knee. Then the head. The third one lunged at Jack, slamming him against the wall. Jack grunted, dropped his rifle, and grabbed a knife from his belt. They struggled. Hands, fists, blood, then chunk. Jack drove the knife under the attacker's chin. The body dropped, twitching, then still. Alira ran to the back door. They're trying to set fire to the cabin. Smoke was rising through the wood walls. The dry timber was catching fast. "We have to end this now," Jack said. He ran to the basement hatch, grabbed 2 EMP grenades. "Cover me. I'm going out." Alira looked at him, eyes sharp. "You won't make it back." Jack gave a thin smile. "Don't plan to. Just plan to take a few with me," before she could argue. He was gone, out the side door, moving like a ghost through the smoke. He circled wide, getting behind the attackers. He saw 4 more soldiers. Crouched near the trees, they were giving orders in a coded language, but he understood. "Take the child alive," one of them said. "Kill the mother and the human." Jack's eyes went cold. He pulled the pintink. The first EMP grenade rolled under their feet. Boom. Their suits sparked. Systems fried. They stumbled like blind animals. Jack charged in, gun blazing. 2 dropped before they could even raise their weapons. The third tried to run. Jack shot him in the back. The fourth turned to fight. Jack tackled him, drove him into the snow. A punch, a shot. Silence. Back at the cabin, flames were licking the windows. Alira had dragged water from the tanks, throwing it on the fire, but it wasn't enough. Then boom. Another explosion outside. Jack had blown the last trip mine. No more movement, no more sounds, just crackling fire and falling snow. Jack staggered into the cabin, covered in blood and ash. "It's done," he said, collapsing into a chair. "They're all down." Alira dropped beside him. Breathing hard, they looked at each other. Then at the ruined cabin. The walls were scorched. The roof was cracked, but they were alive. Looney crawled out from under the floor. She looked at them silently, then walked over and hugged Jack, tight. No words, just warmth. Jack blinked, surprised. He hadn't been hugged in years. Something inside his chest softened. Just a little. Alira sat down beside him, her hand brushing against his. "We can't stay here," she said quietly. "They'll send more." Jack nodded slowly. "I know. But this time, I'm not running. We'll make a plan for the first time in years. Jack wasn't just surviving. He was protecting something. Something that mattered. And he wasn't doing it alone anymore. The cabin still stood, but barely. One wall had been burned through. The roof had cracks. And smoke filled the air, but they were alive. Jack stood outside in the snow, staring at the forest. He didn't say a word. His breath came out slow and May. His breath came out slow and May. Heavy fog curling from his mouth. His hands were scratched, his armor scorched. But his eyes were sharper than ever. Inside, Alira helped Looney sip warm tea. The little girl's hands trembled. But she didn't cry. She had stopped crying days ago. We can't stay, Alira said again, her voice tired. They'll send more. Stronger ones this time. Jack came back in, carrying metal panels and wires. I'm not running anymore, he said simply. They want to fight, I'll give them one. But this place won't survive another attack, Alira warned. Jack nodded. Then we make it ready. We turn this into a trap. That day they worked together. Jack dug up the rest of his hidden weapon's old mortar. Shock lines, even a railgun buried in the barn. Alira rewired the power lines and turned the floorboards into pressure bombs. The cabin slowly turned into a war zone. Looney stayed quiet, watching them with wide eyes. She helped in small ways, handing tools, drawing maps of the forest from memory. Jack noticed something strange about her drawings. They showed things before the sensors picked them up. Every time, they were correct. She's sensing them somehow. Jack told Alira, not just seeing, but feeling when they're close. Alira looked away, her voice soft. Her father was the same. He had a gift. A rare one in our kind. What kind of gift? Jack asked, curious. Alira hesitated, then said, he could feel danger before it happened. He called it ghost sense, a connection to life, movement, energy. Jack looked at Looney again. She wasn't just a child hiding from war. She was a warning system, a compass hand, maybe something more. At sunset, the wind returned. Stronger and colder, dark clouds rolled in, not from nature, but from dropships. Jack climbed the roof and used old binoculars to scout the sky. 2 ships, he said. Bigger than last time. They'll land by morning, back inside. Alira was sitting with Looney. She whispered in their alien tongue. Brushing her daughter's hair, Looney suddenly turned to Jack and said something he didn't expect. I don't want you to die. Jack blinked, surprised. It was the clearest she had ever spoken. He crouched beside her and said, then help me stop them. Looney reached into her small coat pocket and pulled out a silver chip. Jack frowned. What's this? Alira gasped. That's the ship's command key. She looked at her daughter, shocked. You took it. How? Looney shrugged. I didn't want them to follow us. Jack stared at the tiny chip. It was small, easy to miss, but deadly in the right hands. If they find out she has this, Jack said slowly, they'll never stop hunting her. Then we end it here, Alira said firmly. Jack stood and nodded. We lure them in, make them think we're weak, then crush them, that night. They worked in silence. They set up false weak points, windows that looked open but were rigged. Tunnels that looked like escape paths, but led to dead ends filled with charges. Jack even attached explosives to the old water tanks, ready to flood and freeze the area if needed. Before sleeping, Jack sat by the fire, armor beside him. Looney walked over, sat down next to him. After a long pause, she whispered, when this is over, will we leave together? Jack didn't answer right away. He stared into the fire, the flames dancing in his tired eyes. He thought of the years he spent alone, cold, bitter, empty. Then he looked at her, and at Alira, watching from across the room. If we survive, he said, yes. We leave together. Looney smiled, the first real smile Jack had seen on her face. Then she leaned against him. Resting her head on his shoulder, for the first time in years, Jack didn't feel like a ghost, he felt. Human again, but he knew what was coming. Tomorrow would decide everything. Life, death, freedom, or fire. And when the sky turned red with enemy ships, they would be ready. The sky turned red at dawn, not from the sun, but from fire. The two dropships hovered above the forest like giant beasts. Snow melted beneath them, trees cracked under the force of their engines. Jack stood at the cabin window, helmet in hand, his old armor fit again. Worn and scratched, but ready. His face was calm, too calm, because, inside, he had already accepted one thing. He might not live through this day. Alira was loading her weapon, her injured arm still wrapped. Her eyes had no fear, only focus. Looney stood between them, silent, holding the silver chip in her small hand. The ship's voice echoed through the forest from speakers above. Surrender the child, and no one else will be harmed. You have 10 minutes to decide. Jack scoffed. Lying scum, they'll kill us all either way. Alira nodded. Then we choose how we die. No more running. The traps were ready, the bombs were armed, the floors rigged, the doors locked. The cabin had become a fortress, but even fortresses fall when enough fire rains down. Looney suddenly walked to the middle of the room. She placed the chip on the table, then looked up at Jack. You can't win if you hide me, she said softly. You win by using me. Jack knelt beside her. What do you mean? Looney looked up at him, her eyes glowing faintly now. The chip talks to their systems. She whispered, I can. Confuse them. Alira's eyes widened. You've been hearing their machines. Looney nodded. They talk in light and pulses, not words, but I can hear them. And I can make them go quiet. Jack stared at her, stunned. This child wasn't just sensing the enemy, she was tuned to their machines. She was the secret weapon. Can you do it safely? He asked. Looney smiled faintly. Not alone. I need to be close to their signal core. Jack stood up, grabbed his rifle. Then, we give you that chance. The ships landed with a ground-shaking thud. Black-armored soldiers poured out. Like shadows, weapons drawn, they surrounded the cabin, slowly cautious after the last ambush. Inside, Jack triggered the decoy beacon. An old transmitter that made it look like Looney was running through the trees. Several squads chased it straight. Into the minefield, boom. Boom. Flames rose through the snow. Metal screamed, bodies fell. The rest of the attackers opened fire on the cabin. Plasma rounds tore through the outer walls. Jack and Alira fired back, picking them off one by one. But the enemy kept coming wave after wave. Their numbers didn't stop, only slowed. The sidewall collapsed. Jack pushed Alira and Looney toward the back tunnel. Go now. Get her close to the core. What about you? Alira shouted. I'll draw fire, Jack said, already turning back. No argument. Alira hesitated, then nodded. She grabbed Looney and ran through the trapdoor tunnel toward the second ship. Jack kicked open the front door and charged out. Gun blazing, shouting loud, I'm right here, cowards. He moved like a ghost, fast and brutal. Took down 4 soldiers before they realized what hit them. A round hit his shoulder. He growled in pain, but kept going until he reached the last water tank rigged with explosives. He aimed at the soldiers chasing Alira and Looney. Boom. The tank exploded. A wave of freezing water covered the field, then instantly froze, trapping the enemy in ice. Meanwhile, Alira and Looney reached the base of the second dropship. The signal tower blinked, alive with commands. Looney stepped close and placed the chip into a control port. Her fingers glowed with strange light. Her eyes locked in focus. Inside the ship, systems blinked confused, then silent. Engines powered down, weapons froze. Even the soldiers paused, helmets buzzing. With static, they're blind, Alira whispered. Stunned, you did it. Looney opened her eyes slowly. They can't hear each other anymore. She said, they're alone now. Back at the cabin, Jack was surrounded. Out of ammo, bleeding, on one knee, the enemy leader walked toward him tall, armored in black. And Silver, a glowing blade in hand. You've lost, the alien said coldly. Give us the girl. Jack spit blood and smiled. You're already too late. Suddenly, sop. A clean shot from the trees, the leader fell. Twitching, dead Alira stepped into view, rifle smoking. Looney walked behind her, holding Jack's dropped flag. She placed it beside him gently. Jack blinked at her, half-conscious. You did it? She nodded. We did it. Hours later, the battlefield was silent. Smoke drifted through the snow. The enemy was gone, dead or running. The dropships were useless now, thanks to Looney's gift. Jack sat beside the fire, his arm wrapped. In bandages, Alira sat next to him, holding his hand. Looney slept peacefully beside them. Wrapped in a warm coat, Jack looked at the stars above and finally spoke. I thought I was supposed to die alone, he whispered, but I was wrong. Alira leaned against him. You were waiting for us, and in the cold silence of a broken world, a family was born not by blood, but by battle, trust, and something deeper, hope.